Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. We have a wonderful show for you today. We're talking about preparing for the unknown and also the ideology of building wealth. So, we'll be talking about insurance today. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet all the beautiful brothers and sisters that are coming in tonight with the greeting words of Assalamu alaikum. And for everybody that is practicing Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak. For those who haven't heard those words before, Assalamu alaikum is a prayer to say that I pray that you have peace. And Ramadan Mubarak just means pray that you have a blessed Ramadan. So today's show is really, I think, something very beneficial and needed in our community. You know, a lot of times people are afraid to talk about certain subjects because they may be a little sensitive or they may be associated with pain, whatever they are. And so today's show is a conversation that needs to be had, that has to be had. And it's part of our mental health, right? Being mentally healthy is preparing for things. Most of my shows have to do with us working and learning, gathering news that we can use so that we can have and produce a healthy future for ourselves, right? In that reality, there also are potential circumstances that are beyond our control. And so that is what we will be discussing today. Let's give a few shout outs and then we'll get into the show. Cheryl X, thank you for coming in. Gloria Jones Miller, OTEP. Sanai, my homegirl, how you doing? Ramadan Kareem, ma'am. Cheryl X, Nia La, Shirley X, Hotel Muhammad. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate you coming in. So, David Hawthorne, peace, my brother. Thank you. Ishmael Ghani, thank you for coming in. So that's what we're discussing today, a conversation that's much needed. Lawrence, thank you for coming in. Ramadan Mubarak, brother. A very, very needed conversation. And so we have somebody that's an expert, just happens to be my beautiful wife, but she has a very extensive history and experience in business. She's been doing it for a long period of time. I'll let her tell you some of the specifics. And so without any further delay on my part, let's go ahead and bring her in. Tawana Muhammad, how are you, ma'am? Doing wonderful. I cannot hear you. You are on mute. Unmute your mic.
There you go.
Okay, so we can hear you now. So that's my beautiful wife, you all, Tawana Muhammad. She is going to give a little introduction and talk about how and why we're having this subject today. Joseph Muhammad, thank you for coming in. Peace, bro.
So, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness Muhammad is the messenger. I'd like to greet all of the guests who've joined the Ultimate Wellness Group this evening in the greeting words of peace. I want to thank you first, Dr. Akili, for giving me the opportunity to come in and share some information on your show. Just a little bit about me from a background standpoint. You're welcome. I actually have been working, as Dr. Akili has shared, for many, many years in the corporate space. And over the last 5 years, I've kind of focused on myself. One of the reasons that we're having this conversation is quite simple. We have an extensive number of people who work in corporations and some who are independent, that their families are actually suffering when someone is actually has passed. And so when I left corporate America, I wanted to make a decision. I wanted to make the decision on what is it that I would like to do that I believe that would add value to our community and would help in a variety of ways to make sure people had some type of stability. As an HR professional, on many occasions, I had tons of people coming into my office when someone would pass away, asking us to do sick day drives, vacation day drives, or give them an advance on their pay because they were having financial challenges. And so, as I wrestled in my mind about what I wanted to do, I thought that this was one of the best things that I could do was to go out and help people understand that working in a corporate job is great if that is what you like to do. Working in an environment where you have benefits, that too is great if that's what you like to do. But you have to do something for yourself to plan for that day when those of us who sit in human resources sit back and say, you know what, Initzia, Sister Initzia, this is your day. And unfortunately, it's your last day. And you walk out that door with nothing, a severance package, and concerns of how you're going to actually take care of your family. And so I looked into the human resource space and said, what do I want to do? And I picked benefits. And one of the benefits that I actually focus on for the company that I have is life and health insurance. You'll see that I have licenses in 9 states. Because I know people in all of those states, and I am one of compliance, as my husband will always probably laugh about. I am not going to try to do business in a state where I am not licensed.
And so these are the
And
very
so
states that
these
I'm
are the
able to
very states
operate
that
in
I'm
right
able to
now.
operate in right now.
And of course,
And
I'm able to
of
get
course, I'm able to
licensed in
get
the other
licensed in
states,
the
but
other
I also
states,
have
but I also have
counterparts
counterparts
across the US.
across the USA.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Um,
Brother Keely,
Brother
I have
Keely,
a
I have a
feedback. Do you
feedback.
hear
Do you hear the feedback?
Yes, a little bit. It's good most of the time, but a little bit.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not too delayed.
No,
So
you're not
before I
delayed.
start in the conversation, I just share that if you look on the screen, you'll see that um, there's a picture of my family. That is the most important aspect of my life outside of my relationship with Allah, who some call God. And I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to not put any type of financial burden on them. And so that's kind of why I started working in the insurance space, Dr. Keely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the introduction. Anicia, Darlene, Paisley, Hoyle, Muhammad, and Monica Stewart, thank you all for coming in. Peace and Ramadan Mubarak. So that was a wonderful introduction. T. Farrell, thank you for coming in. Sanaa is talking about she loved the way you look too. So we got a cheerleader going on back here. So
Love you too.
yes, beautiful, beautiful introduction. So you all can hear based on that introduction that she definitely has the experience and the ability to talk to us and help us with this subject matter. So what would be your suggestions just initializing the conversation and going into the basic information of how to educate people and take them in a place where they understand more? I remember when I first started considering, life insurance for my family, I knew nothing about it. So I know this is a good topic. And where would you start to give us some information to move into the direction of being knowledgeable?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is that you have to understand it's your responsibility to understand what you need as a family. Um, Oftentimes, people think of insurance in a variety of ways. They think of it as something temporary, I think. Even though we know we need it for a lifetime, we go into it sometimes in the space of thinking, oh, let me just get this for this cheap dollar value, forgetting that most people will end up losing their insurance after a few years. So I encourage people to first start with someone who cares, find an agent who is going to have a in-depth conversation with you that will be patient with you and ask as many questions as you need to have answered, because the reality is, as a licensed professional, it's our role to guide you, not to what we want. I actually was talking to a client today and I said, sometimes people think I'm a horrible agent because I'm not going to try and upsell you just to get a dollar. I want to get you in a space where it's comfortable for you and it really does what you needed to do for your family.
Yes.
So I think being educated and learning some facts about what different types of policies are, which I think we'll talk about a little later on, to help you understand what it is that you need. And really to tie into this conversation we're having, your platform. How does your health a role into this.
Yes, absolutely. So, again, we're talking about, things that we can control and also things that we can't control. So can you kind of give us a little peek into what are those statistics that we need to be concerned about when we're making this decision? And I think we have a pretty good question here that maybe you can answer and kind of put into your talk going into the next portion. Danny Muhammad, thank you for coming in. He says, can a person take out an insurance policy on someone without them knowing? Michelle
No.
Muhammad, John Jackson, peace and blessings. Thank you all for coming in. Go ahead.
The answer is no. Historically, you used to could do that, but we cannot do that any longer. The person has to know that you have insured them, and they actually have to sign off. Except the case of children, your spouse has to sign off on that. Your mother has to sign off. Unfortunately, we've had too many people who've done some atrocious things to other family members in the name of collecting insurance. So the industry is very poised to make sure that they are protecting that proposed insurer's life and making sure that they are aware of what's happening.
Yes. Okay. So what about those statistics? You have a slide that you want to show us, correct?
Yes, sure. So just a couple of facts on death in the U.S. The first one is just probably going to stun everybody. 100% of us, every last one of us, is going to leave up out of here. It's a known fact.
That's right.
The average life expectancy, though, is something that, different members of the community, I'm a member of the Nation of Islam, so our goal is to beat that life expectancy. But unfortunately, we are seeing people who are passing long before the age of 79, and some are here past the age of 79. But in the U.S., the average life expectancy is 79 years of age for a man and 81 years of age for a female. I think that the statistics will show here that less than 5% live past 90. Less than 3% live past 95, and less than 1% live past 100. And again, I know the teaching that most of those of us in our home, we're striving to get past 100, get to 200, according to my husband. And so we want to have a healthy life. But I think this is key for a lot of the individuals. And Dr. Keeley, you can speak to this if I'm incorrect, but I think women are more concerned about what happens when their husband departs, because if he is the primary breadwinner or the person who they rely upon the most, him being taken from the home is important. So we say here that elderly women really do outlive elderly men. And in fact, the statistics have said 700,000 women lose their husbands each year, and they will be widows for 14 years.
Mm.
That is a long time.
Yes.
And to have your security, your financial support system hijacked, regardless of whether you're working and he works or both of you work, that's pretty significant in terms of the home. The other component that I think a lot of people don't think about when we think of life insurance, we deal with this concept of men believing the wife that they have staying at home doesn't need a life insurance policy. And that is until they have to pay someone to help the children get to practice, to go here, to go there, to run the different errands, because you can't work a full-time job, do all these different things comfortably in the first year or so. When you've lost someone, you are emotionally drained from, the loss of someone. And so we tell the men in our community, please make sure that you have adequate coverage on your wife and that she has adequate coverage on you, so that your families are not placed in a negative position. The other policy statistic I wanted to share, this is a policy statistic. A lot of people do get term insurance, and hopefully when we get to that section, we'll be able to discuss the pros and cons. But know that only 3% of term policies pay out. And that's important to understand, and understand the why, because there is a place for it. But you have to understand how to do this. And the next slide, I just wanted to show for your audience, if they can take a moment, if you can read the slide, look at your age group at the top You have numbers going across the top, and on the left, you have numbers going down the side. This is what the Center of Disease Control is basically saying. Here are the leading causes of death by your age group. And I know that your program focuses on overall health and eating properly and exercise and the right mindset. Yet and still, we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we don't end up in some of these numbers, like the heart disease, like the respiratory issues. And so understanding these are the things that are causing death. For those on the call who have young children, it's really unnerving for a lot of them to really start to think in this block over here. These are some of the things that are causing our babies to be taken out of here. Unintentional injury. You know, we think it's cute when they're jumping up on a crib and then they fall and bust their head, and now we've lost our child. Right. So those are some things that I would say we want to make sure we understand as some of the statistics.
Right. Excellent points. Let's give a couple shout outs and then we'll go into the next phase, which I think you're going to answer the majority of a few questions. John A. Jackson, Sean Muhammad, Latanya, thank you for coming in. Peace and Ramadan Mubarak. Kareem. So we're getting some questions on what type of policies, what's the difference between whole life and what was the other one? Whole and life insurance. And then we have a question here about, I guess you can kind of cover this after you go into that, is it too late to get an insurance policy due to the corona plague? And will insurance cover you if death comes as a result of that plague? And then maybe also touch base on what happens when people don't have any coverage when they die.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the first question is, what are the different types of insurance policies? So in the insurance world, we have what we call simplified issue and fully underwritten. A fully underwritten product basically says we're going to take some kind of medical exam. That could be a blood draw, it could be a urine analysis, it could be a swab in the mouth, it could be EKGs, depending upon what we have in your file. The fully underwritten takes a little bit longer to put in place. However, it does give you something called a cost benefit. It's not as expensive as a simplified issue. Simplified issue policies are those policies where I can go and I can sit with John Jackson and go through all his medical information, look at my underwriting guide and say, okay, Mr. Jackson has 2 children, he has good health, he's concerned about some things, but overall his medical records are good. So we're going to go ahead and put him in a simplified policy. He doesn't have to take any exam. The insurance company is going to run a pharmacy check to see what prescriptions you've had filled and when those were filled. Generally, they go back anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And then they're going to look at what we call a Medical Information Bureau report. The Medical Information Bureau report, nicknamed MIB report, is going to list your medical information. And if there's anything in there that contradicts what you told us on your application, your simplified issue will not be processed. You will then have the opportunity to roll over to a fully underwritten because they want to discover what are those issues. We'd like to help you, we'd like to cover you, but we need to understand what our risks are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so with life insurance, you can get a term life insurance policy. It can be simplified issue or fully underwritten. And again, the difference is the cost, how much it's going to cost you every month. If you get one that's fully underwritten, it's going to be a little bit less versus simplified issue. And in term life insurance, depending upon your age, you can get what's known as a return on premium. And what that means is you pay $400 a month for 30 years. At the end of that 30th year, by God's grace, you can die. Well, the insurance company is going to give you back all of those premiums. So therefore, you haven't lost any of your money. is very beneficial for those who are under the age of 50 to get those type of policies if they can pass the underwriting test. I think that that for me is a value add because you've had the coverage necessary. You got the term policies in most cases. Dr. Kelly, I think I lost you. I'm still on the screen. Okay, I want to make sure I can hear you. I apologize.
Okay.
So a lot of people get term life insurance when they have a mortgage, because the last thing that you want to do is buy a piece of property, pay for it for 22 years, and then unfortunately you die, car accident or some health related issue. Your family now does not have the funds to finish paying off the house. Well, that term policy can kick in, and it leaves you with the opportunity to decide: do we take this money, pay this house off? Do we take this money, pay 3, 6, 9 months of mortgage while we have it on the market to sell? So now we have the balance of the life insurance policy, as well as the funds from the sale of a home, and then we move and buy a different home. And a lot of people do that because no longer are people staying in their homes for 30 or 50 years after their loved one has passed. They're generally selling because they don't live in the same state anymore. They're mobile, moving across the country. So term policies are pretty good. Term life is also good for those who cannot afford other insurance policies, simply because you need to have something. Yeah, I've heard people say, "Oh, we shouldn't have life insurance," and I have not heard that, nor have I read that, because I have a hadith that I love, and it says, "Have faith in Allah, but tie your camel." You have to be responsible for your family and not leave that on someone else to take care of if you can. Now, if I'm wrong, someone will send me some data and some information, but it's generally an accepted practice to make sure that you're providing for your family. And so you want to look at whether you get a term life with or without a return on premium. The return on premium types of policies are going to be a little bit more costly, but it's worth it because you're going to get that money back and it's going to be tax-free when it comes back. Another policy is whole life insurance. And this can get into questions that some people raise. Whole life insurance, they do have a component where you're growing money on interest. And as a woman who is a Muslim, I've had clients who've had concerns with the idea of the interest, and my philosophy is, well, then donate it, because that is the policy that will keep you with the same rate for the entire time period of that policy. And that is important because unlike term, at the end of a term policy, you don't have any insurance, and you now either can convert that policy to a what they consider final expense or burial policy, but you're paying an higher rate because your age is different, your health is different. And so we talk to people a lot about whole life policies and donating whatever interest grows off of that, if that's something that the person chooses to do. Final expense, they are actually whole life policies. However, they generally don't go past $50,000 to $60,000 as a benefit, and they generally are offered to people between the ages of 45 up to 80, depending upon the company. And then you have these accident-only policies. This, for me, is the most dangerous outside of term when you don't understand it. But an accident-only policy is the policy that is dirt cheap, and what you find is this is what has historically been sold in a lot of our community, because you see this exorbitant amount. Oh, you can get $100,000, $500,000 for this dirt cheap price. But what is not registering is that it only pays if you die in an accident. If you don't pass from an accident and you have a health issue, your family doesn't get any coverage. And so that's very important to know and understand. And you want an agent that's going to go through that with you. Universal life is another one that's a little tricky for people. It has a whole life component that grows cash value that you can borrow from, um, just like the other whole life policy. But it's not generally added on to the total cash benefit. But you can borrow from it to pay for college tuition, to pay for a variety of things. This is another dangerous life insurance policy. It's called a variable life insurance. And I'm calling this dangerous not because it's not a good policy. I'm calling it dangerous because most people don't pay attention to what they're signing. Whenever you see the word variable, that means it can go up, increase, change. There's a variation that can happen. And quick story, I have a client who was 62 years old who had a policy since he was 25. And he did not realize he had checked a box that said, if I'm not making enough on my payment, take it from whatever values in my insurance policy. He was paying $262 for a $25,000 policy. He thought he had more money, but because it was variable and he had not noticed that, he had no money saved in that policy, which is what he was attempting to do as a client for the prior company. So this is important to pay attention to and understand what you have. Guaranteed issue life insurance policies are policies that are generally, again, for the elderly, their type of final expense. And basically what happens here is, say you had a medical issue, you could get a life insurance policy that could be guaranteed issue at a certain age. But if you had certain medical conditions, they guarantee that they will issue it, but they're not going to pay a benefit on it until after sometimes 2 years and 1 day. So you have to have the policy for a certain period of time for it to pay out. And so that's, again, is another education that you have to go into. And then we have what's called group insurance. A lot of us work for different companies, as I said, and we get offered tons of benefits on these jobs. And the reality is, if it's free, take it. But if it's an insurance policy, there's a group policy that you can't take with you and you cannot. You have to think long-term about where you invest your money. I've had people who worked at me in different companies and they're leaving their corporations because they've been there 10, 20 years and now they're in the layoff pool and didn't realize they really didn't have insurance that they could afford, because once you leave this group plan, you're covering the portion of the plan that was discounted when you leave. And a lot of times it's like Cobra, it becomes unaffordable. And so we tell people, understand what you have, take what's free. If you feel like you can afford a few extra dollars, do that, but always have something outside of your job, because in reality, you have to have something that's affordable. And if it's already in your budget, you've already gotten it at a reasonable time period in your life, you can keep that. Whereas your group policy, if company A decides they're going to cancel that group policy with that company and you've already left, you have no insurance. So you want to make sure you understand that. Riders are things that you can have on your insurance. A lot of people are concerned about cancer and all these other hospital critical illness issues. You can't add that onto your group insurance. So we want to make sure you understand that. Was that sufficient, Dr. Keeley?
I think that's wonderful information. Absolutely. I would like for Cheryl to let us know, did she answer your question about the term policy? And then I think Danny asked a really good question. He says, is there a reason why auto insurance is a requirement and life insurance is optional?
Well, that's a great point, Brother Danny. The reality is auto insurance deals with impact to other people that are not a part of your family. So it deals with, if you damage something in our society, we're a very suit-oriented country, that if you damage someone else's property, they have a right to collect against you. And because most of us in this country do not have the financial fortitude to have $25,000, $1 million sitting up in our bank accounts, they say then you have to have money to pay for that. So you're required to have an insurance policy to cover that, to protect the other parties. It should be required that you should be required to protect your family. But oftentimes it has, the mindset of the people is just fickle. Right. I think he also asked the question about coronavirus and can you get insurance now? Right now, you can get a life insurance policy if you have not been exposed to someone who's been diagnosed positive with coronavirus, or if you have not actually had the virus. If you have had the virus The stipulation, depending upon the company, is that you may have to wait 30, 60, or 90 days before you can apply, and your doctor will have to certify that you are symptom free. If you have been around someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, then you have to wait 30 days before you're actually able to secure a policy.
Great, great, great. I'll get a couple shout outs. Keto James, Sammy Luckman Muhammad, Lakeisha Wimley, Aurelia Malden. Thank you all for coming in and spending some time with us. Seems like everybody is enjoying the interaction. You did answer Cheryl's question. I guess next we got, you're going to go into making that transition from the whole what is a life policy and about to work to the family, correct?
Yes, and I wanted to make sure I answered. I think it was an additional question that just popped back up, and I believe it was, what happens if you don't have a life insurance policy on your passing? I believe is what the question was.
Right. And in addition, he asked, is it more difficult to get insurance in the elderly?
And so, okay, so in regards to getting life insurance, not having life insurance. So historically, if you didn't have life insurance and someone did not claim your body, the city was going to dispose of your body, whether that be through cremation or whatever that may be. But most of us do not want to leave our family member to be cremated or left to the city. We'd like to give them a proper burial. So in the event that you don't have life insurance, you see it, GoFundMe. I had a client, she's 81 years old, and she said, Sister Tawana, I am not going to have nobody putting a webpage up talking about GoFundMe,
right?
So that doing a chicken plate dinner to raise money to bury me. And so at her age, it was feasible for her to get life insurance at 71. We can go all the way up to the age of 80 to get life insurance. Again, everything depends upon underwriting. One of the things I share with Dr. Keeley is that one of my biggest pet peeves is to see these email notifications or these mailings coming out and guaranteeing your insurance. Every company has underwriting, even though they say there is no medical underwriting. The moment you ask a question, that is an underwriting question. And so for anyone who wants to get life insurance up to the age of 80, you can do so, but we have to look and see what company you would qualify for if you meet their criteria and what health issues you have that they will say yay or nay to. I've had clients who've had hepatitis C who've actually gotten life insurance because of their age. But again, it's not going to be the $100,000 to $300,000 range. They're literally getting burial policies, and they may be able to leave something to a grandchild. So it's not a significant amount. Did I answer that, Dr. Keeley?
Yes, absolutely, you did. So I think you wanted to go into more of the familial situation as far as the insurance is concerned, correct? Personal affairs, medical history, and those type of things.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the insurance companies look for. As I said, the pet peeve of mine is just our community really not understanding these offers that you're getting flooded with in the mail. When you think about what you do on the Ultimate Wellness Group, it directly correlates. It has a direct impact to how you protect your family's financial wealth. If you are unhealthy, you are likely to have to pay an extensive amount of money for health insurance, for life insurance, and other insurances. I don't even think people are aware that their credit impacts their overall cost of their car insurance. So everything you do impacts the cost of the things that you're getting. So these are some of the things that when we are looking at clients, we're looking at your overall health, your height, your weight, what types of medications are you taking? How long have you been on those medications? What caused you to get on those medications? We want to know your family history. We're going to look at your actual finances, because we have people who believe that I can get $1 million, but I only make 40,000. No, there are underwriting guys that say, why are you trying to get $1 million when you make 40,000? This is a mismatch for us, because they don't want amount of fraud to happen where they see people putting money from illegal activities into different things. Now, if you make $40,000, you live at home with your mother, that's a different story. You may be 25 or 35. We're going to say, okay, 40,000 times 30. And that's the number that you're able to actually get in terms of life insurance. I would also say how important it is if you have life insurance, please get with someone to make sure that we're doing a policy review. And what a policy review does for you is it actually gives us the opportunity to take a look and see what you have, because you may have reached out and gotten an insurance policy when you were 26 and now you're 40. And I have a client, we were talking about this, he was paying $26, but when we looked at his actual policy, and I think it was like 5 years, he was going to go up to almost $700 a month. But that doesn't make sense. So you want to have a policy review. You want to have that early on in the game, because you want to relook at your expenses, relook at, what debts you have out there, what you want to make sure your children, your grandchildren, your spouse are going to have for the next 3 to 5 years. Remembering 14 years, the sisters are widowed. And that is a huge issue for a community, and we want to make sure that they are taken care of in the best manner.
That's right.
So those are some of the things that I will share about that.
Excellent. So our next topic is going to be talking about the financial aspect of this, and then the companies that you work with. I just want to give a couple shout outs and give you a couple of more questions to think about as you're doing that. John D., thank you for coming in. Yvonne Miller, EP Hope. Danny would like for you to explain a little more about what underwriting means. And can you also talk about rider? I know you mentioned the word rider, but I'm not necessarily sure I even understand totally what that is. And then Donna James asked a good question. She said, you may have covered it already. I don't think we did, but she asks, are there policies that consider deaths due to any gun violence except for accidental and active war?
So every insurance company, I'm going to work backwards. Every insurance company is going to look at why you were murdered, because that's what gun violence would equate to. If you were murdered as a result of somebody else, meaning you got caught in a crossfire, there's no problem with you getting paid out for that. If you're in the commission of a crime, they're not going to pay you because it's illegal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. With regards to riders are things that you attach to your insurance policy. So for example, I have a $100,000 life insurance policy here, and I have 2 children. I can attach a $25,000 rider onto my policy, so I don't have to write a new policy for my children and pay for that at the same time. I have a $100,000 policy, and I want to have critical illness, which could be a heart attack, could be lung issues, stroke issues. I'm going to attach that says if I have a stroke and the doctor says I have, less than a year to live, then this insurance policy can be cashed out at a certain percentage, whatever that company's is. Because that right of the critical illness, I'm going to pay you on that, and you can cash out that insurance policy to cover whatever hospital medical expenses you need. If your family says, hey, we don't need this to live, we need this to help you be comfortable for the balance of the year. So different riders out there: accidental death, children's rider, critical illness, disability. All those things can be added into a life insurance policy at certain points in times based upon your age and overall health. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely cleared it up for me. You all let us know if that cleared it up for you.
And then I thought there was a question on underwriting. So underwriting is a guide. Generally, every insurance carrier has a guide that tells the insurance agents who are considered field underwriters. So in my case, I'm a field underwriter for various companies. When I sit in front of a client, I can sit with Dr. Keeley, and I'll give his height, weight, whether he's a citizen. I know some people are like, well, I can't get insurance. Yeah, you can. Even if you're not a citizen, if you're here for 12 months, there are certain things you can do. If you're going to be here for 4 weeks to 12 weeks, there are things that we can do. But we want to know, are you a U.S. citizen? Do you have a TIN number, a social security number? So that's the first part of the underwriting. Then we're going to look at all different components of your health, from medications you're taking to sicknesses. You know, as I said, the client that I had that was paying the exorbitant $260 a month, he actually was shot by someone, which caused him to be in a wheelchair. Well, that's an underwriting question for some companies. And so I can put that in that, yeah, he's wheelchair ridden. And that could be a denial. But in my comments as a field agent, I can say this injury, he's in the wheelchair as a result of having been shot at his employment, and his policy will get approved. They're going to ask about AIDS. They're going to ask about HIV. They're going to ask about your heart. They're going to ask about your lungs, your respiratory. They're going to ask all the different medical questions to see where you get placed. They're going to want to know if you're a diabetic, because diabetics have different ratings in insurance. So depending upon what we look at from that underwriting guide, they're even going to ask, they're even going to ask, do you scuba dive? Do you hang glide? What kind of extracurricular activities are you going to do? Another one is, what type of work do you do? You know, a person who's an underground welder, we have to do a whole different form for them because they're in a certain line of work, firefighters, policemen. So we're going to look at what is the total risk when we're insuring someone to make sure that the company is giving you the right coverage and you don't get a reason to deny. Some people, I've heard agents and have chastised some agents and actually kicked them off of our team that will go in and say, yeah, don't worry about it. I know you scuba dive, but I'm not going to put that on the application. Well, if something happens to them and they find out they were scuba diving in the first 2 years, they're not going to pay that policy. They're going to return those premiums. That's not good for the client. And so it is our job to do our due diligence. Insurance is a risk business. And what I explain to people, it is not a one-for-one risk. When a person is paying, let's use a term policy of $100,000, you're paying $25 a month. If you get that policy on today, the 28th, and on tomorrow, go out, that policy's been approved, it's all enforced, and you have an accident and die, that insurance company is going to cut a check for $100,000. That's not equal in terms of risk. So they want to make sure they manage their risk. And that's fair. I think as a business owner, we all should manage our risk.
And I think what you all are hearing here today is also, you hear the responsibility factor, the morals, the convictions that goes into what Tawana is talking about. And I think you're starting to hear that as a continuum on the Ultimate Wellness Group, because those are the type of people that I'm bringing on. You know, just a quick story and then we'll get back to it. When I first opened my practice here in Houston, I wanted to prove to everybody that Black people could work together. So when I opened my first office, the lawyer was Black. The people that were doing my billing was Black. The person that was my lawyer, my CPA was Black. The people that were cleaning my place was Black. So just about every aspect of my business, I think except one, was from Black and brown people. And so that's another positive about what we're doing here on this show is, you know, we're building, I talked a little bit about mental health. It's important for us as Black people to see other Black people that are doing things and doing it the right way, not cutting corners, not trying to hustle, but do things in a way that, you know, we're dealing with either your health or you're dealing with your insurance. We want to make sure that you are taken care of well, that you are a satisfied customer. And so I just wanted to mention that as we were going through this. All right. So a couple of shout outs. Latrice, thank you for coming in. Fitzroy Muhammad, thank you for coming in. And please clarify the end of that for me so we can get your question answered. Yvonne Miller says, could you cover the fact that your family's medical history can alter your policy? And then Charles, thank you for coming in. Charles and Levette watching. And Sanai had a couple of questions I want to get to you real quick. She says, so you have to be able to prove how much you make to determine the amount of money you may possibly receive. And what are some prices you pay for this? She says, what are some prices you pay this, you get that?
So No, you only demonstrate to me the agent, but I have to have what we call fiduciary responsibility. If I, as an agent, know that you make 25,000, and I fill out your application, I write you make 50,000. Now I'm putting myself in harm's way because legally I am violating the law because I'm helping you to commit what some could consider fraud. So I don't ask you for a pay stub or any of that. But I like to get to know my clients. I've gotten up and walked away from clients because all money is not good money.
That's right.
I don't want to be in a position where I'm placing you in a position where your family will not get what they invested. That is a long history for the Blacks in our community where they've had agents who come and they've sold families all these different policies and they didn't collect. My fiduciary or financial responsibility is to make sure that when I sit with you, you have what you need, even if it's just basic to make sure that we're not doing a GoFundMe. But in regards to what you have to prove, it's important for me to make sure that I get to know you. We have something in our training for fraud and all these other aspects called KYC, know your client. And if I suspect that there's something happening with any of my clients that could be illegal, or if I participate in something illegal, I will be behind bars, and I don't do them stripes, and I don't do them bars that can't open, and I don't do them orange jumpsuits for other folks. Can't be doing all of that.
And
So
that's going
while
to go
you
get
don't
into.
have to prove it, while you don't have to prove it, I really do have to know the client and have trust that the data and information that they're supplying to me is accurate. And then I can comfortably write them in what they need.
Good, good, good. So Fitzroy says he clarified that he wanted to know he's not married, doesn't have any children, 50 years young, and he wanted to know what makes your policy uniquely different from the standard policies. Another good question, Donna Jones says, are companies checking social media for your possible risk factors? Maybe people are telling too much of their business. Brother Danny got another good question. When the plague is over and able to visit Africa, will life insurance cover accidental death? Thank you, John. He says very informative information. One last question.
Okay, so let's go to.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, sir.
While you're answering all those questions, Darlene Paisley says, what do you think about AARP insurance?
Okay, great. And so let's go to Brother Fitzroy. I can't really tell you distinctively what would be different about our policies because I would literally have to do a policy review. In doing a policy review, if the agent who is doing your policy is striving to make you change your policy, that is illegal. We have to review your policy. And if you have the best policy available to you for what you need to cover, what you are trying to cover, even if it's just your burial expenses, ethics should kick in place that allow us to say, you have the policy. If I move you from here to here, is not beneficial to you. Now, if you tell me you want to move, that's a different story, but I'm not there to coerce you into moving. So in order for me to adequately answer that question, my contact information is scrolling across the screen. Please reach out to me and I do policy reviews complimentary. We do them over the phone. We can do them just in this format with Zoom or some other format, to make sure that I'm able to give you guidance to see if there is something significantly different or better out there for you, and to make sure you actually have what you think that you actually have. So I pray that answered your question. I think Sister Sanaya had asked about me calling out some numbers. That is a dangerous game because you don't have all the factors. I could tell you that a policy could be $25 a month for a 26-year-old or $60 a month for a 26-year-old who wants a return on premium. But there are so many other medical things that go with it that could cause that policy dollar value to go up or actually come down. So for example, someone could have been a smoker and they haven't smoked for 5 years. So they're going to get a better rate versus someone who just stopped smoking last year. Their rate's going to be different. And so calling out numbers, I can't really do. I would have to literally have a conversation with you to see where you're at to match up what you're actually looking for. I think Ms. Miller asked about the medical history. What we do from a medical history standpoint is they're looking to see if there are any trends that are happening. And there are. We know that high blood pressure, diabetes, all these different things as Dr. Achilles has said numerous times, they are not genetic. They're just how we're eating. And so we haven't changed those behaviors. And so we can probably tend to expect to see some of those other things. But we are going to look at your family history. Want to know some basics, like, if your father died, what age did he die? Well, if that's 54 and you're 54, they're going to look at that and see, okay, what's the risk for that? So those are different types of things. All that medical history is going to, in fact, go into the database so that we know, okay, this is what's out here. What's the risk? And those numbers that they're running, I have no idea how they do the numbers, but there's an algorithm that's running in the back of these computers that these different companies have that's helping them to determine future rates for the population. I think that's to Sister Sinai, right? I got your brother Fitzroy. The Sister Donna, I think you asked if they're checking social media. No, ma'am. We do not check your social media accounts for risk. However, insurance carriers have started making changes that, and it's not just health and life insurance. You have people who are on the auto side as well, because you got a lot of vehicles they're driving and stuff. They're starting to look and say, this is not covered. This is why when you get a policy, I don't care who you get it from, you have to sit down and actually read the content of that policy and not just put it in a drawer because you say, I don't understand that. So that's very important. I believe Brother Danny had the question of when the plague is over and we're able to visit Africa, will life insurance cover accidental death? Life insurance does cover accidental death, and it has what we call common carrier death if something happened while you were in a vehicle, on a plane, a train, or any of that. And so your insurance will cover you no matter where you go in the globe as long as you have it. Did I get all your questions? Oh,
yes, you did. And it's proven that you have a wonderful memory because you got all that stuff. And I know everybody's seeing all that memory. She's gonna get all your information right on whatever she does for you, because there's no way for her to read that. Okay, go ahead.
I think there was another question regarding what are my thoughts on AARP. You have to read your AARP, just like a AAA also offers coverage for life insurance. And one of my clients, actually the one whose policy was the $260+ used to be an agent. He said that was the worst job he ever had because it wasn't about doing this education. It was more about making a sale. So whoever you go to, we can all sell you anything we like to over the phone. Get the data. Everything that's cheap is not always valuable. I'll tell anyone in this conversation, there are a couple of companies that I'm really proud to be a part of, and I'll share those on the screen. And they're in no order except alphabetical. And I'll tell you my primary three that I'm absolutely unequivocally ecstatic always about. And then the others are, okay, if I can't do it, here are my go-tos. When you think about life insurance, for a lot of individuals, unlike Mr. Fitzroy, I believe, mentioned, a lot of us have family members, we have nieces, we have nephews, and my go-to for them is going to be foresters, because they have what's called an orphan benefits, which basically says if you have a burial policy for $25,000, $35,000 and you die, you have, I think it's up to 8 children, I believe. Each of those children are going to get a check for $900 plus whatever your death benefit is to help them manage every month until the age of 18. That's phenomenal. And I want to make sure that I give that to my clients. I want to educate them on that. They're going to provide wills. They're going to provide access to legal support. So that to me is a total package. It's a fraternal company. It's not like our Mutual of Omaha. I think many people grew up on Mutual of Omaha. It's a great company, great brand. My other company that I like, particularly for those who are under the age of 50, is the Columbia Financial Group, because they actually offer you a return on your money. Meaning if you get a term policy and you pay it for the 30 years, at the end of that period, you're going to get that money back. And so that tax-free return is great for your pocket. The other one is one of my favorite is Aflac. I know I'm sure people have seen these on the commercial, and they do life insurance, but that's not what I really love them for. I really love them for the critical care policies, the cancer policies, and the accident policies, because they're going to put money back in your pocket. That to me is important. A lot of times, you get health insurance, you have these doctor's bills, they get paid, but you've missed work. You've had to pay for stuff that you didn't expect. And to me, I love that. I worked with a client 4 or 5 days ago, and he's gotten a check for $28,000 and has not had the policy for more than a year and a half. So for me, that's valuable. What did he have? He had 3 issues that were related to one, from an accident to a hospitalization to a short-term disability. That's value to me. And I don't think that we understand how important it is to have money still coming in your home when your loved one is out of work due to an illness and can't get the funds. I don't care what anybody say. That check that you get for disability at work is not always enough. So I just wanted to make sure that I shared that those are some of my favorites. Transamerica is probably one of the most expensive. They have some very lax, but you're going to pay for that that coverage. So now, did I get everybody's question? I think that time.
Yeah, I think you got everybody. Great information. Look, you all, because of a lot of people practicing Ramadan, we're going to end on time today. So if we do not get to your comment or your question, please forgive us, but I have her information scrolling at the bottom. If it doesn't take too much, she may be able to just come and answer you quickly on here. But if she's not doing that, please reach out to her with her information at the bottom. But Lakeisha Wimberly says, if you signed up for one policy a few years ago and decide it's not the best, how easy it is to change the policy you take out, and what is the best policy to take out for a child? And Tamu, you asked about pre-existing conditions, and I think she covered that, but please let us know if we did. George Allen, thank you for coming in.
And so in regards to getting your policy, you are the policy owner. We will take a look at your policy and make a change if that's what you need to do, and you can change your policy immediately. But what they don't like as a carrier, because remember, all that information goes into this medical information bureau, they will see you jumping from company to company, and they will raise questions on your why, depending upon the type of insurance policy that you secure. And children's policy, we have juvenile policies. I tend to like ones that are going to be beneficial for the child for the long term. We have to specifically talk to see what you're looking for, what your goal is with the policy before you can determine what's the best type of policy. Pre-existing conditions. Pre-existing conditions are going to be noted in the Medical Information Bureau. That's why we ask you for a very in-depth interview. We want to know specifically, hey, all this information, the more you tell me, the better I can help you. Because what happens is if you get denied, that goes in another record. And so there's a question on every insurance company that says, have you been recently denied? And so you want to make sure you're just as honest as possible with that person who's sitting in front of you attempting to get you your coverage. And so it's everything is it depends. It's not a black and white answer when you come to life insurance, because there's not one person that mirrors the next person.
Well, I think it was a wonderful show today. Wonderful information. Thank you very much for coming in. We have a couple of questions left here, but I think you're going to have to either contact her, or maybe you can take a little time and get them right, because we're close to the end. And I got to get a plug for the next show next week, y'all. I'm not telling you the subject nor who the special guest is, but I may have 2 special guests for you next week. So you got to come on back next week to the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday, a place where you can come and get news that you can use, right? I think that you all are seeing the pattern, news that you can use, because today is news that you can use that we really have to take in consideration with a plague that we're going through right now. We really don't always have the ability to predict what's going to happen to a loved one, and not even the elderly, but to a loved one in general, because there are a lot of young people that are perishing because of this plague as well. A couple of shows ago, we talked about famine. That's coming. It's on the horizon. You see it in so many of these mainstream media. They're talking about plague of biblical proportions. So again, we have to continue having these type of shows. We have to continue to make sure that we are building this unity so that we can come together and do the type of things that help us make it through the times that are coming. So thank you, everybody, for coming in. I want to thank my wife for bringing this great information. Everybody is talking about it. It was great information. They learned a lot. And that's the benefit. That's why we do what we do. And again, I know you heard the responsibility factor coming out of my wife. And that's what is going to happen. You reach out to her, get the information. I've heard her on many of occasions talk to people for 30, 40 minutes, sometimes in excess of an hour, and doesn't really concern herself on whether or not she sells a policy. It's about making sure that our community is educated and go and do do your own research and do what's best for you. George Allen, I forgot to shout you out. But again, thank you everybody for coming in. We appreciate you. And we pray that everybody comes back next Tuesday. I think you have something to say, so go ahead.
I do. This is not about my show, but Dr. Keeley, you don't forget to get your surveys because it is so important for people to know.
So what we're starting today, everybody, is a poll that we're going to take. So I'm going to put it in the comments. If you all don't mind, take that survey. Give me your feedback because we want to make this show better. We want to make sure that we are addressing your needs. So please, everybody, take a few minutes. Kai Malene, I meant to learn that Hawaiian statement that you gave me, but I didn't get it. I'll get it next time, okay? But I'm gonna put the poll in. Please take it. Give me your honest feedback so that we can continue to make the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday the best place for you to be every Tuesday. So thank you all very much, and may we see you again. Until then, have a blessed rest of your week. And those of you who are practicing Ramadan, we pray that Allah is blessing you with a wonderful Ramadan. Continue to enjoy it, and you all go have a wonderful time breaking your fast. Peace.